morning, everybody, and welcome to our session today. We're very excited that a little more than 100 of you have joined us to spend some time together talking about September and bringing some clarity, we hope, to some of the questions you may have relative to the September startup and coming to study with us at Canadore. I'm joined this morning by a number of experts from our team. We have Elizabeth Long and Zia Sumar from Long Mangaji law firm, who work with us on immigration law and who are experts guiding us in terms of ensuring that we have good information and accurate answers for you today to support your decision making and your journey. I'm also joined this morning by Laura Solana Moya, who's an expert member of our international team. Laura has many years of experience both as an educator in Costa Rica and in various locations throughout North America, as well as on our team for a number of years now, guiding our practice as creating a good student experience and environment here at Canadore College. We're also joined this morning by Jeanette Miron. Jeanette is labeled as Laura, so I'll get Jeanette to wave at us here this morning. And Jeanette is our Director of Strategic Enrollment Management and Registrar at Canadore. Many of you will recognize Jeanette's signature name, at least from some of the correspondence you received. And we're extremely pleased to have this great panel this morning here to welcome you. My name is Sean Chorney. I'm Vice President of Enrollment Management, Indigenous and Student Services at the college. And our team focuses on service, focuses on making sure that you're ready to come to the country, making sure you're ready to arrive in North Bay or in Toronto, and that your experience is a wonderful one from start to finish to graduation and beyond. And so thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for considering Canadore. And with that, I'll turn it over to Elizabeth to get started.
Thank you so much, Sean, for the introduction. So let me sort of explain how we're going to be doing this today. So first of all, what is a study permit? Why do you guys need a study permit? The study permit is something that allows you to study in Canada in a program of over 6 months. Only designated learning institutions qualify. Of course, Canadore College is one of these, one of the DLIs. And it's not that every DLI will allow you to get the postgrad work permit. Only public colleges and universities will allow you to get the postgrad work permit afterwards. And Canadore is one of the institutions that will allow you to do so. A lot of people talk about study visa, student visa, study permit. What's the difference between a study permit and student visa? The study permit is a document that you will get when you come to Canada, and at the airport, if your study permit is approved, you will get that study permit document at the airport. It's only issued in Canada, and what it is it allows you to study in Canada. A student visa is something that many of you will need. It depends on the country that you're from. Some people don't. If you don't need a visa normally to enter Canada, then you don't need a visa. But for those people who do need a visa to come to Canada, when you apply for the study permit, the visa is granted and placed in your passport to allow you to travel to Canada. And so the visa allows you to travel. The study permit gives you status and the ability to study in Canada. What's required for a study permit? There are various government document checklists out there, and they have different documents on there depending on which process you're going to apply. SDS has specific documents that you need to submit in order to apply under the student-directed stream. If you are going to apply for a study permit under the regular way, there is another set of documents that you need. But overall, the government document list may not be everything that you need to provide. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about some essential elements that you're going to need. So first of all, acceptance into the DLI. You do need that acceptance letter from Canadore in order to apply. You can't apply before you get that letter. you have to show that you intend to study. Just because you've applied to a program does not mean that you intend to study. Normally, what we do is we advise people to provide a study plan, an explanation to the officer why it is you want to study in this program in Canadore. This is especially important for people who we call mature students. If you're not going directly from high school to a college, a lot of times the officers may wonder, well, you haven't been in school for a while. Why all of a sudden do you want to study in Canada? What is your intention to study? You also need to show that you have funds to study. For people coming under the SDS stream, that is shown with your GIC. If you don't go through the SDS stream, you should show that you have enough funds to pay the tuition, to pay your to pay your living expenses. Normally, it's at least 10,000 for one student per year, but oftentimes what we do is we show that you have really put your mind to it, and we put together a budget to show that you have enough funds to pay for your studies, and you've really turned your mind towards that. Okay, the funds not only need to be in your bank account, you need to show that it's been in the bank account for a while. It's not just one huge deposit. If it is one huge deposit, then what you do need to show is, where did that money come from? Okay, if you're getting support from your parents, if you're getting support from someone else, you need to show that they have enough income, they have enough savings to pay for you. Intention to follow the laws of Canada and leave when required. When we see study permit rejections, this is on the letter, I would say 80% of the time. Okay, they'll say, I do not believe that this person will intend to leave Canada when they're supposed to. So what does that mean? In Canada, we have something called dual intent. You can want to get permanent residence, and but as long as you come as a student, which is a temporary resident, as long as you can show that you will follow the laws of Canada and leave if you are required to do so, if you can't get permanent residence. What that translates to, however, at the visa post is often the officers may want to show that you have temporary intent. They're not supposed to, but it is sort of translated into that. So what they do look at is they look at things like, do you have a lot of ties to Canada? If you do, then there's an indication, that you may not want to leave. All of these things, it's not black and white. It's not the end of the world if you have a lot of ties to Canada, but they do look at different factors. They look at whether or not you've traveled outside of your country before, and if you have ever violated any laws. If you travel to any other country, immigration laws, if you travel to any other countries. They look at what your ties are back to your home country, etc. Okay. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that your application process is done in a timely fashion. So right now, because of COVID, you're not really able to apply to the VAC by paper. And that's fine, because most of the time the online system is a lot faster, a lot easier to do so. So apply online. Complete your medicals if necessary. Not everybody has to complete your medicals. There's a list of countries that if you have been in that country for over 6 months in the past year, that you would need to complete your medicals. Okay, it's not about nationality, it's about where you've been. Complete your biometrics. Now, a lot of people will say, well, you know what, right now I can't because my VAC is closed and I can't do it. That's okay. You can submit your application, and as soon as the VAC opens, you can go and do your biometrics. The biometrics, you pay for the biometrics when you apply, and then the immigration right now, they understand that a lot of the centers are closed. And so what you can do is you can just complete your biometrics when it opens, when the center opens. Submit your passport. If you need a visa, you submit it. If you don't need a visa, you don't need to submit it at the end, okay? And then what you're going to do is once you obtain your study permit approval, eventually you then come to Canada and get your study permit at the border. Now we're going to talk a lot more about this, to talk about what's going on right now with COVID and the borders being closed. Okay, but this is the normal process. Like I said, all of the, not all of the centers are closed right now. Some centers may be closed. They may be open afterwards. Don't worry if you can't submit every document that's on the list. It's okay. You can provide an explanation. The things that you do need to submit is you need to submit the application fee properly. You need to submit your forms properly, okay? You should have your letter of acceptance from the school. Other things you can just, you can tell the officer, I'm going to get it. I just can't right now because of such and such reason, because of COVID, etc. And I will update my application afterwards. The officer will likely not process your application until you can get the necessary documents like medicals and biometrics, but you can always submit it first, okay? For family members, if you have a spouse, they can qualify for the open work permits. Your children up to grade 12 can go to public school in Canada for free. You do have to apply for a study permit for them if they're at the school age. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about working while you are studying. Now, in order to work while you're studying, you have to be a full-time student throughout your attendance in school. And I'm talking about working while you're studying in Canada, of course, okay? So there's an exception in the last semester of your school. If you just need to take 1 or 2 more classes, the immigration recognizes that you may be part-time at that point. There is a COVID exception as well that we'll talk about later, that if you are part-time because some of your classes have been canceled because of COVID, that's okay. You can continue to work part-time as well, okay? On campus, you can work full-time. Off campus, you can work up to 20 hours while taking classes, and 40, well, I say 40 hours, but it's full-time during school breaks, okay? During COVID, you can work full-time for essential services. Currently, this is until August 31st. So people who are in school right now, you can work on a full-time basis only for the essential services. If you have a co-op component of your program, then what you should do is you should apply for the co-op work permit together with your study permit, okay? This will allow you to work off campus. Normally you can work off campus only 20 hours. This will allow you to work off campus full-time for your co-op program, okay? Apply for it together because afterwards, if you don't, you just get a study permit, you can't start working until you apply again for the co-op work permit. You can't start working before you start your program. So if you come to Canada early, and you have your approval, you want to come to Canada early, and you want to start working 3 months before, you're not allowed to. You have to work after your classes start. And once your program ends, you have to stop working unless you've applied for your postgrad work permit. Okay, this program today, it's targeted for people who are just starting the programs. We're going to do another one afterwards for people who are, looking to get permanent residence, and how to get permanent residence afterwards, and how to get the work permits afterwards. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what is happening nowadays with this COVID. I'm gonna have a caveat here. What we say today is true as far as we know today, okay? But things change all of the time. And so you do need to keep up to date on the laws just before you come throughout the time. We will put some information at the end. We do have a COVID update page, and the school will also have more information once we get more information from the government, okay? So currently, we have a travel ban for international students who have not received study permit approvals by March 18th. What this means is, even if you have a visa, even if you have a study permit approval, you're not going to be able to use those documents to get on the plane if you didn't get the study permit approval by March 18th, okay? Please hold on and don't get discouraged about this, because things are changing. Currently, the travel ban is until the end of this month. It may be extended. How long it's going to be extended, we're not sure, okay? So that currently is the situation, but this is bound to change very soon. The second thing is, there is a second layer on top of that, in that currently, okay, if your classes are online, even though you're allowed to get on the plane, so whoever screens people, it's the airlines who are screening you to let you on the plane. There's another screening, which is at the airport with the CBSA officers. And I just spoke to a supervisor at the Pearson Airport yesterday, and I asked them, would you be issuing the study permits at the airport? And they told me that if they feel that you don't necessarily need to be in Canada at this point because your classes are online, that they wouldn't necessarily want to issue the study permit. So you have to be very careful about what it is that is the situation. If your classes have some hands-on component, then the school will be giving you a letter saying that you need to be in Canada because you need to attend classes, right? And it's not just online. That could convince the officer that you need to be in Canada. But if all of your classes are online, even if you can get on the plane, you can get to Canada, at this point, it may be that they say, sorry, your entry to Canada right now is discretionary and optional, okay? Now, here's the thing. It's still worth it to apply for your study permit. If your study permit, if you get an approval letter, you don't have the study permit yet because you haven't traveled to Canada, but you get a letter from the embassy saying that your study permit has been approved. And if your classes are online, you can still study outside of Canada, just where you are right now. That period of study will contribute towards your postgrad work permit, okay? Now, the government right now has said that the online has to be less than 50% of your entire studies in order for you to obtain the postgrad work permit. This is the rule before COVID, okay? So basically, in order to qualify for a postgrad work permit, you have to have over less than 50% of your studies is online. It seems like they're still applying this to the students who are outside of Canada. We'll see if they are changing the rules afterwards, okay? If you start a semester, say you have a 1 year And if you start a semester for the first for the first semester and you do it online outside, and then the second semester, if the government still says, oh, all classes have to be online, what you could do is you could defer your studies for the second semester and then do it when you can come to Canada. And then you will still qualify for your postgrad work permit. It seems like right now, looking at what the website is saying, that students who currently hold study permits are inside Canada, they can study online, and the length contributes towards your postgrad work permit, even if your class is online. It seems like it says irregardless of 50%. That still, we've asked for confirmation from immigration and have not heard back from them yet. But it seems like this may be what the government is looking to do for students who are inside Canada and who are studying online. Like I said, if you are in Canada and your classes are canceled or you have to study part-time, you can still maintain your student status and work part-time unless it's essential services, which means you can work full-time. So let's look at the process timeline here. The first thing I would do if I were you is to collect all your documents that you need and submit your application. If your medicals are available, do your medicals and you can apply for STS. If your medicals are not available, you might consider just applying under the regular stream. And then you can do your medicals afterwards. You know, STS is really supposed to be an expedited process. That's why a lot of people apply under the STS, because it makes it faster. However, in this situation, if you can't submit your application under STS, you can't do your medicals. If you submit it in the regular stream, you keep your place in line. And as soon as the center is open, you do your medicals. Your place in line may be further up ahead before STS. Okay, so I can't say which one is faster, but it's not necessarily that the STS now, if you can't do your medicals, is going to be faster. So the biometrics and submitting your passport. When the VAC opens, you can do that. If the VAC, don't worry though, you can still submit your application, okay? The third thing is you have to keep up to date about when you can travel to Canada. Like I said today, what we're telling you today seems to be the policy of today. But you know what? It could change this afternoon. These rules are changing all of the time. So make sure before you travel to Canada that you understand what the policy is on that day, on that time, okay? If your application is rejected, you do need to contact a lawyer right away. There is a 60-day filing period from the date of rejections for applications outside of Canada. Currently, the courts are closed, but as soon as the courts open, the 60 days start counting from that date. And if you don't file the notice within that time, then the court would likely say, oh, you missed your time period, you can't go to the federal court to have a judicial review of your case anymore, okay? So, so that is essentially the process. Now let's open it up for some questions. Zia, are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here. We've gotten some great questions, Elizabeth. So to start, you talked about needing an acceptance letter. For your study permit application. What if you only have a conditional acceptance letter?
It depends on what the conditions are. So, you know, if it is that the conditions are you need to get your study permit, that's fine. You submit your application. If it is that you need to submit other things in order to get the full acceptance, then the officer will say, well, why didn't you submit the other things? You know, and it may not be the full acceptance. You know, it depends on what it is. Okay.
For the funds requirement, if it's in a fixed deposit or in a bond, is that something that can be used to show the funds for the study permit application?
Yes, normally what the officer wants to see is that the funds are liquid, that you can pull it out easily if you need access to it. Okay, so if it is in a GIC or a savings and you can access it, then that should be okay.
Okay, great. So if someone's already applied for their study permit, let's say their program is supposed to start in September, but they haven't received a decision yet. Can they start their program? What are the implications of starting?
So if you've applied for a study permit, but you have not received the approval, the school, I believe the policy is that you can't start studying outside of Canada. If you've received the approval, then you can start studying online. In Canada, you certainly need the study permit to start studying if it is, I believe the school policy is you do need the study permit, whether or not it's online or not, in order to study in the program.
Okay. And so for those that do have their study permit and they start studying online, is there any issues from an immigration point of view of starting online with that study permit approval letter?
It's fine. The immigration will allow you to study, and you can use that period of study to count towards your postgrad work permit. So normally, for example, postgrad work permit, if it's a 1-year program, you get a 1-year work permit. 2-year program, you get a 3-year work permit. And so if you studied part of that time online, with the study permit approval letter, you have to have that approval letter in order for it to count, and you can use it to count towards that period of time. The only thing is, if you are outside of Canada, it seems like immigration right now is still applying the rule of if you can only qualify for the postgrad work permit if your study online is less than 50%.
Okay. Great. Right now, how has the processing times been affected by COVID?
It really varies. What we see a lot of times is people who have been able to get their biometrics done and have their medicals done. It seems like these applications are actually being processed quite quickly. For people who don't, then you do have to wait for the biometrics. And so when the biometrics centers open, when the medical centers open, then you can do it. And it might be a little bit slower if there's a huge amount of people who are all applying at that point in time. But right now, we've been seeing that a lot of applications for people who have been able to do medicals and biometrics are processing quite fast.
So medicals is required for the student direct stream ahead of time? Right. So if I don't have that, can I still proceed to the student direct stream?
Likely what they'll say is you then qualify only for the regular stream, but the student directed stream is something where it's supposed to be an expedited process, right? And so like I said, it's right now it's such a weird time because some of the centers aren't open, some of the centers aren't closed. But normally how immigration works is it goes by a queue. So if you get into the line faster, and then later, as soon as you get your medicals, you submit this, it could be faster than if you wait until you do your medicals and then submit the application, because you may be further down in the line.
Okay. If I've already gotten my approval letter and my visa, does that mean now I can travel? Like I can come to Canada?
If you have your study permit and your visa, you have to be very careful. Like I said, it seems like at the airport, and now these kind of things are changing all the time. But right now it seems at the airport, the officers, even though you can get on the plane, okay, the officers may say that, well, it depends on when your study permit approval was issued. If it's before March 18th, you can get on the plane. If it's after March 18th, you can't even get on the plane, okay? But if you can get on the plane and you come to Canada, if your classes are fully online and you can't explain to the officer why it is you need to be in Canada, they may not issue you the study permit even at that point, okay?
Okay. So if I've submitted my application, but I now want to defer, so I want to start later, do I need to update my application?
If you've received your decision, then you can you can come to Canada afterwards and let the officer know that you deferred your decision. If you have not
Perfect.
received your decision, you can decide whether or not you want to pull back your study permit application, or, I mean, you could tell if you tell the officer you want to defer the date, the officer, depends on when you're going to start. For January, what are we right now? Almost July. It might be okay to, you just tell the officer defer. They still can process the study permit. If it's next September, they might say it's too early to apply for the study permit.
Okay. For IELTS right now, if I can't get my IELTS, can I still apply with an expired IELTS?
You don't necessarily need the IELTS to apply under the regular stream. If you're going to apply under the SDS, you do need to have the updated IELTS. So, you know, like, again, if you wanted to apply under regular stream, it's a lot more flexible.
Okay, perfect. And outside of the IELTS, is TOEFL or any other test accepted?
Not for the SDS. The SDS is very specific. But like I said, for the regular stream, you don't even need to necessarily submit your language exam. As long as the school accepts you, then you can apply under the regular stream.
Okay. That's great, Elizabeth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so I have here our contact information. If you would like to have a personal consultation about your own individual circumstances, please let us know that you've attended the seminar and we will offer you a discounted consultation rate as well, okay? I understand that we have more than what Zoom allows under this. We had thought that not that many people were going to come, and it's only up to 100 that were able to come, but we will be recording this session and putting it online as well.
Absolutely. And so what we'll do, Elizabeth, once that link is ready, I understand you'll place it on your website. We'll make sure the links are emailed out to all of our students. So for those on the line, please let anybody that you're speaking to know that they'll be able to watch it. And we do have another one planned in July, so that we'll be able to update and do this again, so that as things change over the next few weeks, we'll be able to get you the most recent information, the most current information, so that you can have your questions answered. And of course, as Elizabeth mentioned, as Zia mentioned, our international team remains available to you. If you go to our website, we do have frequently asked questions that we're updating constantly. Elizabeth is helping to guide that for us, and we'll make sure that we do our absolute best, as we're all in this together, to get the information you need to feel comfortable.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. So we're going to end our session here, but stay safe, stay healthy. Hopefully we'll see you guys soon.